Welcome to Front Office Pros. In our last speed trading, we discussed Dynasty trade targets consisting of the first wave of free agents. On this video, we're going to be talking about the second wave of free agents. We like to call this speed trading. How it works is we will review a player's value based on keep, trade, cut, and then tell you whether we would trade for or trade away the player. Before we get started, make sure to put in the comments below any trade questions that you have, and we'll be happy to provide you our advice.
Hike!
The Houston Texans signed tight end Dalton Schultz to a one-year contract worth up to $9 million based on keep, trade, cut values for Superflex leagues. A fair value for Dalton Schultz would be a 2025 early second-round pick, quarterback Sam Howell, tight end Trey McBride, or 2023 late second-round pick. So based on those values, Joe, would you trade for or trade away tight end Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, Dalton Schultz is a tough player for me, Steve. I like the talent. I actually don't hate his spot in Houston just because, they'll be having a rookie quarterback. And oftentimes, I always say that the tight ends are their safety blanket. But, because of the one-year deal, I think there's a couple of players I would trade him away. And that would be to acquire Sam Howell or McBride. I'd be willing to trade him for those. And, possibly the late second-round pick in 2023. But I probably wouldn't do it for the 2025. Or actually, if I could, I would trade for Dalton Schultz for the 2025 early second-round pick and trade him away for the other three options.
Yeah, for me, I actually would trade for Dalton Schultz. He's only 26 years old, big target at 6'5", 244. He had a late start. He was kind of a late bloomer. Over the past 3 years is when he really started performing with the Dallas Cowboys. His best year ever he was tight end 3 in 2021, which isn't bad. He had over 100 targets, which was his best year. So question will be, will he get over 100 targets and will he get the touchdowns? At worst, in the past 3 years, his touchdowns at worst were 4. So I think that he has a great opportunity with Houston. Like you said, there's going to probably be a rookie quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if that rookie quarterback gets a shot to play this year. So to me, I think he's an under-the-radar value. And at the end of the day, with him being only 26, he can really I think his value could increase. The only gamble is, and you kind of mentioned it, it's a one-year deal. So if he's not good or it's no guarantee he stays with Houston, then where does he go? So that's the risky element. But for me, I'm not really that big into quarterback Sam Howell or tight end Trey McBride. I can understand the intrigue and appeal for those guys because they're young and up and coming. Both were former rookies last year. Never really had the opportunity. McBride behind Ertz, Howell behind Wentz and Heineke. So if they do become starters and based on their potential, they could be really good. I'm not convinced that either will end up being what we hope them to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Just the fact that not knowing where he's going to go, that one-year contract really scares me. Otherwise, I'd agree with you. I'd be trading for him all day.
The New Orleans Saints signed running back Jamaal Williams to a 3-year contract for $12 million, including $8 million guaranteed, based on keep, trade, cut values for Superflex leagues. A fair value for Jamaal Williams would be wide receiver Darnell Mooney, wide receiver Alec Pierce, running back Rashad Penny, and then the 2023 second-round pick, 205. So based on those values, Joe, would you trade for or trade away running back Jamaal Williams?
Based on those values, I think I'd be trading for Jamaal Williams. I liked his landing spot with the Saints. There is going to be some touchdown regression this year. I can't anticipate him having that many touchdowns, with the Saints this year. But I like his landing spots. You got Alvin Kamara who's there, given all of his legal trouble, all that stuff kind of floating in the air. I'd be willing, based on those values, I'd be willing to trade for him.
Yeah, it's going to go against conventional wisdom because once a running back gets older, their drop-off comes fast. They just hit the cliff and then they're gone. So you would think with Jamaal Williams being 28 years old, you would be wise to trade him away, especially coming off an incredible year that he did where he had 17 touchdowns rushing. That's like the most that we've seen, I feel like, in a long time. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like a big number in this day and age when it comes to running backs. But I would trade for him too, Joe. I really would. I mean, his value did not come from a PPR standpoint. He was 13th in PPR, but 7th in standard. The big thing was the touchdowns for him. He only had 16 targets with 12 catches, last year for less than 100 yards. So he's not going to be involved from a passing standpoint. That's what Alvin Kamara is going to do. But with all the legal troubles and Kamara really not gelling with that offense last year, I think Jamaal Williams will have a great opportunity to still be a possible RB2, at worst RB3 for you. So I think at the end of the day, I would trade for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the fact that he's 28, but I think the one saving grace for him is the fact that he's never been the bell cow guy. I feel like there's not a mileage on those legs is for that reason. So even though he's 28, he doesn't have the normal wear and tear that a 28-year-old back in the league might have.
Wide receiver Brandin Cooks wasn't a free agent, but was recently traded to the Dallas Cowboys. And in exchange, they sent over a 2023 fifth-round pick and a 2024 sixth-round pick. Based on keep trade cut values for Superflex leagues, a fair value for Brandin Cooks would be wide receiver Romeo Doubs, running back Kenneth Gainwell, wide receiver Rondale Moore, and a 2023 second-round pick, a 206. So based on those values, Joe, would you trade for or trade away wide receiver Brandin Cooks?
Yeah, even though he's an older receiver, and a veteran, I think based on the values, I'd be trading for Brandin Cooks. I think the Cowboys acquired him for a reason. They had to get rid of Amari Cooper and just couldn't pay him for cap reasons last year. Feel like they never really filled that void. They didn't have a third guy, and I think that's what Brandin Cooks is going to bring to the table for this offense. They lose Dalton Schultz as well, so there's more targets that are vacated. So I'd be comfortable trading for Brandin Cooks.
Yeah, you just mentioned those vacated targets. Dalton Schultz had 89 targets last year, so all of those are up for grabs. And people forget where Brandin Cooks, he's been a pretty consistent wide receiver too during his career. I mean, he's had some down years, but in 2021, 2020, and 2018, he was a wide receiver too. So the question will be, the offense can, I think, sustain him with those values. Just, are we believing that Mike McCarthy is going to run the football, or are they going to have pass and he's going to get over 100 targets? That's the question. If he gets over 100 targets, you're glad you have him. If he doesn't, he's going to be a disappointment. But at the end of the day, I would trade for him as well. Obviously, if you're not a competitor, a competing team, then it would make sense to maybe get some of these other guys. But even the guys that are in this value chart, I'm not really excited about them. Rondale Moore, to me, was a gadget guy kind of for Cliff Kingsbury, undersized. So, now with the new head coach coming in, I'm not sure that, he's going to be great moving forward. Romeo Doubs, who knows, with Aaron Rodgers most likely out and Jordan Love coming in, how involved will he be? And then Kenneth Gainwell, he's interesting, but I don't think the Eagles are just going to roll with him, Boston Scott, and Rashad Penny. I think they're going to draft somebody. So the only one I would consider, I think, for me is a second-round pick. I'd rather take my shot at this rookie draft and see what I can get than those other guys. But at the end of the day, I would trade for Cooks.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. None of those other players, really excited me if I was going to trade Cooks away. That's why, I'd be using those players according to the value chart to be trading for Brandin Cooks for sure. The only, like you said, the draft pick was the only thing that was, kind of intriguing there.
The Carolina Panthers signed wide receiver DJ Chark to a one-year contract worth up to $5 million. Now, what's interesting about DJ Chark is some other free agents that went to new teams, and running back Damien Harris and wide receiver Alan Lazard, their values were literally like right next to each other. So keep that in mind, Joe. So based on keep trade cut values for Superflex leagues, a fair value for DJ Chark would be running back Damien Harris, wide receiver Alan Lazard, tight end Isaiah Likely, and then a 2023 second-round pick, the 207. So based on those values, Joe, I think Chark is the most interesting of this group, but I'm going to open the table for you. or open the floor for you, I should say. If you like Harris or Lazard better, but would you trade for or trade away any of those players?
All right. Well, all right. This one definitely is a tough one, Steve. I feel like it's the toughest of the group thus far. It's interesting that, you mentioned Chark, Harris, and Lazard, being grouped together in similar value. I personally like Chark the best of the three. Then I'd probably go Lazard and probably Damien Harris after that. And, I like, even though it's a, 1-year deal to the Panthers, I think DJ Chark's a talented wide receiver, just never really had a chance. And I think he's, got a chance now that he's with the Panthers. They no longer have DJ Moore. Somebody's got to step up there. So he could be the guy with the rookie quarterback here.
So just to clarify, you would trade for Chark, and you would be willing to give up Harris, likely Lazard, and or the second-round pick 207.
Yeah, maybe the only one I would consider maybe not trading for would be that second-round pick. I might be willing to trade Chark away for the second-round pick, but the other three I'd be comfortable trading for Chark, definitely.
Yeah, I think the reason why I constructed it the way I did was because I think DJ Chark, to me, is the one that's the most interesting. I would rank it Chark, Damien Harris, and then Allen Lazard as of today. If the Bills draft a running back, then I'm not interested in Harris. So for me, I'm definitely trading for DJ Chark. Really like him as a player. Only 26 years old, 6'4", 205, big frame. He's been, in the NFL for 5 years, but 1 year he was the wide receiver 17 back in 2019. Frank Reich has already came out and said they want to expand his route tree. He has the opportunity to be the number one guy. So to me, I would be willing to trade away any of those pieces to acquire DJ Chark.
Now, my rankings would also change if Aaron Rodgers is not going to the Jets. I would not like Allen Lazard as much.
That's the gamble with both Harris and Lazard right now to make a trade for either one of them because there's still some mystery around them. Is Rodgers really going to go there? Is there some way that it breaks down and Rodgers gets traded to the Niners or something? And then with Damien Harris, do they bring in another running back? And then he's an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, I think if you get a sure thing like Chark with those pieces, go ahead and do it.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed quarterback Baker Mayfield to a 1-year contract for $4 million. Based on keep trade cut values for Superflex leagues, a fair value for Baker Mayfield would be a 2023 second-round pick, the 209, wide receiver Michael Thomas, running back Devin Singletary, another free agent player, and wide receiver Chase Claypool. So based on those values, Joe, would you trade for or trade away quarterback Baker Mayfield?
This is kind of a tough one here. I would trade for Baker in a super flex league with these pieces. The only, the one thing would be possibly for the second round pick, maybe not. But if I had, I'm not a believer in Michael Thomas, so I think I'd roll the dice on Baker possibly winning the starting job there with Tampa and having those weapons, especially in a super flex league. Same thing kind of goes for, Devin Singletary and Claypool. Not really sure what I'm going to get out of those guys. So I'd be willing to trade those three guys for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a tough one. And it's kind of a section of players that don't excite me very much. So that's the concern. So I think based on those values, I probably would trade for him as well. But my caveat would be I would trade him away for draft capital. So that 209, 2023 second round pick, I would trade him away for that. And, even if I could possibly get draft picks in 2024, possibly, I might even consider that as well. Just don't like the value with Michael Thomas, Devin Singletary, and Chase Claypool. Thomas can't stay healthy. Singletary sharing the backfield in Houston, and I don't think he's going to get the main carries. He'll be a complementary piece. And then Claypool, I had hopes from in Chicago, but now with DJ Moore there and Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, that offense is starting to get crowded, and Claypool did nothing when he got traded over there. So I have some pretty strong concerns about him moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the other concern is the fact that they didn't really throw the ball much in Chicago either. We'll see how that changes with them acquiring DJ Moore. But, even Justin Fields did a lot of his fantasy scoring was due to his legs and his rushing ability, not so much through the air. So it'll be interesting to see, Chicago's offense here.
The New England Patriots signed tight end Mike Gesicki to a 1-year contract for $4.5 million. Based on keep trade cut values in Superflex leagues, a fair value for Mike Gesicki would be quarterback Ryan Tannehill, wide receiver Michael Gallup, running back Samaje Perine, or a 2023 second-round pick, the 212. So based on those values, Joe, would you trade for or trade away tight end Mike Gesicki?
Yeah, I think I'd trade for Gesicki. I think he's a young, talented tight end that just was way underutilized with the Miami Dolphins. And for whatever reason, didn't fit the scheme there that McDaniel wanted to run. I mean, Smythe was getting more action than him. It's just mind-boggling. This guy's a big target. I think New England's going to use him, and Bill O'Brien will figure out a way to get him the ball. So, none of, those players are not that intriguing to me. P. Ryan's intriguing in Denver, but a lot of that hinges on if Javonte Williams isn't going to play or not. So I'd be willing to trade all those for Mike Gesicki.
When it comes to the, I know this isn't the right word, but the rhetoric that gets talked about when someone says they're a buy low player, I don't typically like when people say they're a buy low, because in reality, it's basically like, oh yeah, I'm gonna lowball I'm gonna give a lowball offer, and then exchange, I'm gonna get a player that I believe in. Well, this Mike Gesicki as a player is the epitome for me of a buy low player. This guy's value is in the absolute basement. People are not, for whatever reason, well, I know why. Last year, he was horrible. I mean, he wasn't featured in the offense. He had 52 targets for 32 catches and 362 yards with 5 touchdowns. He ranked 23 in PPR, was featured less in that offense than Smythe, like you mentioned. So his value right now is way down here. Way down here. So nobody, and now he goes to New England. Hunter Henry's already there. That offense is kind of vanilla. It wasn't very good. So people are like, maybe if he went to a better offense, I'd be more excited, but he went to New England. But Bill Belichick has incorporated a 2 tight end system for a long time. Bill O'Brien at one point recruited Mike Gesicki. He's a far more athletic tight end right now than Hunter Henry is. So to me, he's going to supplant Henry as the passing receiver tight end for them. So to me, it's a smash trade. I would trade for him, and I think the value based on key trade cut, I think his value is extremely low. There are some other players that had even better value moving up. I mean, honestly, you might think I'm nuts, but we did this based on value, based on the free agents. I'd be willing to trade for Mike Gesicki and give up Michael Thomas, Devin Singletary, or Chase Claypool, all guys that were in the Baker Mayfield category.
Oh yeah, I'd be willing to do that as well. I mean, like we said, for the Baker Mayfield category, I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, but I also don't like those other guys. And in a Superflex league, Mayfield's the better value, and so is Mike Gesicki for that matter.
But you agree with me that, to me, like, Mike Gesicki is a buy low, and it's one of those things where the offer that you give him, it's not going to be perceived as a low ball offer.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I completely agree. I mean, his value couldn't be any lower at this point.
I mean, somebody could still lowball you and be like, hey, I'll give you a 2025 fourth. And then it's like, okay, like, why did you reach out to me? But I feel like he's the type of player that if he's on your opponent's dynasty team and they're kind of like concerned about his future, I feel like you could strike a deal for him pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of where I really put my money where my mouth was and traded for him last year before this, free agency period, assuming that he was going to leave the Dolphins because he wasn't an offensive fit, So, I already did trade for him.
Yeah, you did. You didn't know what the outcome was.
Yeah, I didn't know what team he was going to go for, which was kind of risky. But at the same time, his value is still pretty low while he was on the Dolphins. So, try to take advantage.
And I would agree. It's not the best landing spot by no means, but I think it's definitely grown on me since it's happened.
Yeah, I agree. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but after just kind of digesting it and thinking about it, Miami couldn't be any worse, with his utilization, and there's no way that New England's gonna sign him and utilize him less than what he was being utilized in Miami. So, and Hunter Henry doesn't really scare me as his counterpart of the tight end position either. Gesicki's, bigger, taller, and more athletic.
So that concludes speed trading for free agents. We'll say part 2, where we went over trade values for players who have gone to a different team this offseason. If you've enjoyed this content, we ask you please like this video so that others can find it as well. Please comment below with your trade request. We're happy to give you our advice. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're a relatively new channel, and we try to post content on a weekly basis related to the offseason, Dynasty, IDP, salary cap, you name it. We also recently joined Apple and Spotify podcasts, so follow us there as well. But thank you so much for watching, and until next time.